Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had an amazing day so far. So my name's Fiona Young, and I'm a millennial leadership coach. I know lots of buzzwords, but ultimately what I do is to help leaders, help organizations bridge the generational gaps, make sure that the top executives understand the younger generation, their preferences, their leadership styles, as well as helping the emerging millennial talents to be prepared for future leadership roles. And I myself come from a 14-year corporate background, so I was in oil and gas for 14 years, very un-millennial-like. And in those 14 years in the oil and gas industry, actually in Shell, I was in finance, and then I moved, after 7 years in finance, I moved to digital transformation, where I was the global lead to implement technology in terms of proactive communications to our customers. And that's also where I'm going to share a few insights, some of my experiences from that role, leading a multi-generational team. But they're not only multi-generational, they're also very diverse with regards to the culture, with regards to their backgrounds. Because my team consists of IT, operations, sales and marketing, HR, logistics, so various functions working together to make sure that we enhance customer experience and to make sure that we don't only implement all these technologies, but we can actually increase the uptake. And that was what ultimately was our goal globally. So, embarking on a digital transformation journey is obviously very challenging for a lot of organizations. And if you put in the multi-generational aspects into the mix, it may become even more daunting for organizations. How do you make sure that you still keep the millennials engaged and at the same time do not leave out the baby boomers? How do you make sure that people do not fear technology, rather see them as an opportunity than a threat? How do you make sure that you actually create a change mindset in the organization so that people continuously learn from each other and utilize technology effectively? And we know that millennials are the majority of the workforce. In 2025, 75% of your workforce will be millennials. And so it's really important to make sure that you create a generationally diverse and inclusive team, because you will have new generations entering the workforce, and at the same time you will also have the older generations staying on a little bit longer. Now, when we talk to digital strategists and also top executives, they all want to jump onto the bandwagon of digital transformation. Sometimes without clear intention, sometimes without clear vision of what they are trying to achieve. And so it creates a disconnect and also a divide internally. They did a research on organizations, and about 90% of these companies are saying that they're going through some sort of digital transformation. But only 25% are saying that they're confidently understand what their customers want in terms of technology, in terms of digital, that they understand also how their customer journeys are looking like. And for those in organizations who are involved in digital transformation, they say the major barriers that they're facing are the people. It's the people, the leadership, and the culture. It has nothing to do with technology. And when we look at digital transformation, it's actually not just a campaign. It's not a once-off marketing campaign, but rather something that we need to continuously emphasize to make sure that we continuously enhance customer experience. And for me, leading a digital transformation team, we had to work cross-functional. We need to make sure that we work together with HR, we work together with logistics teams, for example, to ensure that, for example, our new e-commerce platform has the correct data. So we need to ensure that everyone, regardless of the organization, regardless of the function, that they understand that they actually have a really huge role to play with regards to digital transformation in order to provide our customers an amazing experience. Now, it's unprecedented. It's the first time in modern history that we actually have 4 generations working side by side, and the differences among them is probably one of the biggest challenges that managers have to face today. So, who are we talking about? Who are the 4 generations? before I share that with you, I also wanted to make sure that we all understand that belonging to a generational cohort is not one-dimensional. We're all still unique individuals. We're shaped by our upbringing, our culture, and also our tenure in the organization and the phase of life that we're currently in. So what I'm going to share with you are just generational indicators, things that make us similar. But nevertheless, it's really important, especially as leaders, that we treat everyone as unique individuals. So to make sure that we all in this room at least understand who we're talking about, we have the baby boomers. So the baby boomers, they were born post-World War. They have seen lots of economic booms. Their traits are primarily that they are born in larger families with lots of siblings, so they tend to be more collaborative. They're very hardworking. They focus a lot on respecting authority, and you need to work hard in order for you to climb the career ladder. So those are the generational traits of baby boomers. Most of them are actually retiring within the next 6 years. So it's really important for us to understand in HR that we need to have a talent pipeline that is robust. Then we have the Gen Xers. So a lot of these Gen Xers are now in really senior leadership positions. I have a lot of friends who are Gen Xers, and they constantly complain that they are in the shadows, so they are not really in the limelight because they're overshadowed by the baby boomers, because they made up the majority of the workforce, majority of the populations for many decades, and obviously now overshadowed by the millennials. So they feel a little bit like sandwich kids. Their traits are that they are very independent. They're also very focused on family. They're very family oriented, and maybe it's not a surprise because of the phase of life that they're currently in. Now then we have the millennials, often also the scapegoats for everything. Not sure whether you've heard, but millennials are apparently killing the napkin industry. So millennials, currently all over social media, even my job title includes the buzzword millennial. It's very catchy these days. They are the largest percentage of your workforce. In certain organizations I'm supporting, sometimes it's even 90% because they are in retail. So millennials, who are these people? Apparently we're the entitled generation. We are the generation that is constantly on social media. We're also sheltered by our baby boomer parents, and but there are also good traits. So we're very socially responsible, and we value work-life balance as well as understanding that there is purpose in work. So instead of just making money, it's all about making sure that it's purpose-driven. Now, let's not forget our younger brothers and sisters, Gen Z or iGen. These guys are actually entering the workforce as we speak. So instead of just focusing on and complaining about the millennials, I think now it's the opportunity to make sure that we in HR, we as business leaders are prepared for the next generation, truly understanding them, their preferences, how they like to work. So Gen Z or the iGen, they have not really seen an economic boom before. They are being labeled as a little bit more realistic in comparison to the millennials. So for them, it's about economic security, and I believe especially here in Hong Kong, in a very expensive city. And they are the fastest growing workforce by percentage. So importantly now that we also focus on Gen Z and not just complaining about the millennials. Now every generation uses and works with technology differently. It's not about right or wrong, it's about how does the individual effectively use technology. And it's also very important when we deal with implementing new technologies internally that we take away the fear of technology, that we actually help our people understand that you don't need to be afraid of technology taking over like Skynet or the Matrix, but rather it's there to help you and to help you to make more and better informed decisions, help you to focus more on value-added activities rather than repetitive and transactional ones. So I do believe, though, that we have a lot of commonalities, because when we talk about the generational differences, it obviously provokes a lot of banter, a lot of arguments, because every generation will always complain about the following generation's shortcomings, and they're failing to see their own ones. I do believe when it comes to purpose of work, when it comes to workplace expectations, we all really want to feel empowered, trusted, and respected, no matter what generation we are from. And we want to really contribute to the business success. We want to see how our work actually impacts customer experience, impacts the business and the bottom line. At the same time, though, we also want to be recognized for the good work and the effort that we're putting in. So it is not generationally specific from my point of view. We have similar values, it's just that we define those differently. Perhaps also because of the influence of technology. And I always remember one of my biggest critics when I left my corporate career after 14 years was my dad. And my dad asked me one question when I decided to leave and embark on my entrepreneurial journey. He asked me, why do all these millennials like yourself always want to chase after your dreams? Why do you always want to just focus on adventures? And I answered him with a question, because I knew that when he was 17, he actually packed his bags and he backpacked from Malaysia all the way to Germany. Yeah, he didn't take a plane. He seriously just backpacked throughout Afghanistan, Iraq, and he had that adventure. So I asked him, Dad, when you did this, how did my grandparents react? Were they happy about it? And obviously they weren't. So he just had to be reminded of his own adventure, and now it's my time to embark on my entrepreneurial adventure. So I think sometimes we just need to remind our more mature generations that they also had their fair share of embarking on their own journeys. So what can you do to embrace digital transformation with a multi-generational team? From my point of view, and that's the experience that I had as a global lead for digital transformation in Shell, it's about creating a culture of inclusion. And I know that all of you guys here primarily are from HR, so you understand that it's important to have a diverse workforce. When I say diversity, it's, for me, what's really important is the diverse mindset, diverse thoughts. But without inclusion, diversity, there's no point in diversity. So making sure that you as a leader, you as HR, you create an environment where people feel free to connect with each other, where people can empathize from different generations and learn from each other. Consciously pairing up baby boomers, Gen Xers with the younger generation, and learning from each other, learning from the baby boomers to be more calm, resilient, perhaps learning from the younger generation who have more drive, they're willing to take more risk when it comes to new technologies. So creating an environment where people can empathize with each other and also remove all these stereotypes and unconscious biases. Secondly, is about acknowledging the differences. Pretending that we all think and feel the same way is not going to bring your company anywhere. So it's important that we acknowledge the differences, that we openly talk about it, and that we actually leverage on the different generational strengths that we have in the workplace. Be mindful that some of your more mature staff might feel awkward to be led by someone who's younger, but at the same time, there might also be frustrations from the millennial talents working with someone older who may actually be a little bit less risk averse. And it's all about transparency. It's all about communication. Digital transformation is a change management project, and the key here is communication. So it's really vital whenever you implement new technologies, whenever you implement a change, that you consistently and constantly reiterate the message of the why. Why are we implementing this change? Why are we implementing this new digital technology? And also, how does that have an impact on the person's role, the person's job content? Removing the fear and letting them see that technology is actually an opportunity and not necessarily a threat. For me, the key word, though, is thoughtful. So it's about thoughtful transparency. It's about creating a transparent communication where people are communicating inclusively, non-abrasively. So for me, that is the key. Thoughtful transparency. And last but not least, and I believe that a lot of your organizations have implemented a mentoring program already. Who has implemented a mentoring or reverse mentoring program here? Okay, quite a fair bit. I would actually suggest you to think about and consider peer-to-peer learning, mutual mentoring. So where you pair up a baby boomer with a millennial talent and where they can actually learn from each other. So it's a win-win situation. So I can promise you these guys are actually not millennials. This is my previous leadership team in Shell, and fun fact, just moments before I took this photo of them, we were discussing, or they were complaining about our millennial staff that were constantly on our cell phones, that were constantly glued to our iPhones. And this is how I caught them red-handed after the meeting. And this is where we were gathering at the hotel lobby to go out for lunch together. And it looks like they are WhatsApping each other. Okay? So perhaps it's an opportunity for us to maybe ditch the conversation about generations and just focus on one generation, Generation C, the connected generation. A generation that is not defined by age, but rather defined by the way of life. It's a lifestyle, it's a mindset. And obviously most of the Gen Z are millennials. But for me, technology, innovation has nothing to do with age. It comes with the mindset of curiosity, someone who's open-minded to trying out something new. Gen Z, these are the ones who are early adopters of technology. So it has nothing to do about the age. And I believe that it is a huge misconception to say that millennials or Gen Z are tech savvy. I don't believe that. And also, when we ran a next generation study very recently in January, we surveyed 650 millennials and Gen Z here in Hong Kong, working and living in Hong Kong, and we asked them, do you feel prepared utilizing technology effectively in the workplace? 40% of them said yes, leaving 60% of them not feeling prepared. So I don't think that being a millennial automatically makes you tech savvy just because you're able to post something on Instagram or on Facebook. So yeah, perhaps something that we can ponder about, not only to focus on the generations we like to talk about, but rather see it more holistically, Generation C. And so for me, the key success to digital transformation is about leadership. It's basic human leadership skills. And I'm pretty sure whatever I've shared with you today is nothing groundbreaking. It's not rocket science. But sometimes when we get caught up in the daily operational firefighting, we tend to forget about that. So we need leaders who are able to make sure that we all understand the vision, the why of digital transformation, the why of technology, making sure that they understand also our concerns, the concerns that employees have, and also addressing those concerns. Making sure that leaders not only say they put people first, but they're actually reinforcing and modeling that they create an environment where people feel free to speak up, where people are not afraid to share about mistakes, because mistakes can be learning opportunities. In fact, all these mistakes should be shared across the organization, because if it's happening in operations, it might actually also happen in HR. So it's a really amazing learning opportunity where we bridge the gaps between the different departmental silos. And I'm a strong believer that culture still eats strategy for breakfast. Thank you very much.
So much, Fiona. Woo, there goes a bit of microphone. So let's come in with some questions now in terms of challenges you're having perhaps with dealing with multi-generational workforces, dealing with differences in the need and also in the willingness to adopt different technologies by different age groups within your organisation. So questions for Fiona. I know it's getting late, it's getting to the end of the day, and I shall start with my questions, okay? So you talked about it's important in terms of diversity and inclusion within the organisation to create, not just, we're not talking about race or age or culture, but talking about mindset here, a diversity of mindset that's very healthy. And in terms of, you know, how do you actually go about doing that? So when you're at Shell, how did you create a sort of a platform, if you will, for making it easier for people to feel comfortable dealing with people who they wouldn't normally interact with? Are there some tricks or tips you can share with that?
So my team that I was leading before I left Shell was custom operations, and we were interacting a lot with internal but also with external customers. Now a lot of things happen when you're dealing with customers, obviously, and what we did was something very practical. Every morning we would have a little team huddle. So instead of long meetings, we create small pockets of huddles where we can share success stories with each other, or even stories where it wasn't as successful. So it's creating that environment where people feel free to share without actually having the fear of negative consequences. Because we created the huddles with smaller groups, people also felt more comfortable to share with each other. So instead of having big meetings that seems very formal, we actually broke it up into 15-minute huddles, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one towards the end of the day.
Well, that's good, because I don't think any meeting should be longer than sort of 20, 30 minutes.
Plus, it was a standing meeting, so you don't want to stand longer than 15 minutes.
So, and this would happen on a daily basis?
That's right.
And then that was done, but that would be within the same team, yeah?
So we actually encourage also our finance colleagues, our HR colleagues to join, not on a daily basis, but we encourage them to join, let's say on a monthly basis. Also, when we have leaders visiting, we make sure that they join us. The first thing that we usually talk about is safety. So when you create that safety mindset, people start to actually share other stories as well.
And so you would do the interdepartmental sort of meetings. That would be on how often would that happen?
Usually it happens on a monthly basis. So it's actually also where the sales teams, they gather everyone, support functions, into one room every single month. And then they will share about their sales targets, their KPIs. They want to make sure that everyone is aligned with the KPIs. That's the worst thing. When you have different departments, everyone has their own goals, their own KPIs. And in order for us to strive towards that one common goal, we need to make sure that we're all in alignment with the KPIs and that they're not contradicting with each other.
So after you came out of Shell and then you've gone down more sort of independent consulting route, what's your main criticism of HR in Hong Kong? What do you think that HR is getting wrong in terms of adoption of new technologies within the organisation?
You're putting me on a hot seat because everyone I work with, they're amazing, obviously. No, but Joseph.
You can speak hypothetically, okay?
Well, I think, again, it's about understanding. It's not only implementing technology, and this is also what I experienced in Shell. It seems that we stop at one point. We implement a new technology, and we don't really increase the uptake. We don't actually see anyone utilizing it. So you spend a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of resources into implementing technology, but no one is actually using it. It's something to do with internally, so people internally are not using it, or even our customers. They don't want to, they somehow are not accessing our e-commerce platform. So in order for us to really amortize and to have a return on investment, we also need to make sure that everyone, whether they're in sales, marketing, operations, that everyone is in alignment with regards to the KPI and also drive towards the uptake of these new technologies.
Okay, so that's a noble cause for HR to be carrying forward, to make sure everybody's aligned with the KPIs. But the reality is that different people have their own agendas, and that may be related to coming from different generations. It might be related just to their particular departmental needs, or their own boss giving them pressure in a certain direction that means they're a bit handcuffed and they're not able to be quite so open. So how can HR go about helping people who are not in the sort of perfectly advantaged situation of being able to be totally free, but they're a bit constrained sometimes? What can we do to help them?
I believe it's also a mindset change in HR. I was never formally in HR, but I was always part of the support function in the organization. I was in finance and then in operations and IT. And it's the mindset change that you all deserve a seat at the table, that you are part of the decision-making process. I would see HR actually as the glue in the organization to make things happen, because you know who the talents are. You are the ones who hire great people into the organizations. You are the ones who groom them, provide training for them. So I see this more as a mindset shift, that you deserve a seat at the table and that you are the glue as well.
Okay, any other questions for Fiona? You've stunned everybody into silence. Well, let's put our hands together and say thank you so much to Fiona Young from the Coach Consulting for sharing that with us at the end of the day.